All right. This is Joyce Uhlir from WCWCatholic.com, and I have a special guest today, which is Cara Wiskow.
Close.
Get it? Good. I have historically pronounced it incorrectly. We got it. So, Cara is my daughter's roommate in St. Louis, and so that may be weird, and we hadn't really met until a couple of hours ago, and I asked if she would talk a little bit on recording for us, because she has been involved with the it seems wrong to call them protests, but the action at the statue of St. Louis in St. Louis. I remember I visited my daughter Rachel, who is Cara's roommate. I remember going to a big park in the middle of St. Louis, and I think that's the park with the zoo.
Yes.
And if you were in New York, it would be maybe the equivalent of your Central Park.
It's actually a little bit bigger than Central Park, but yeah.
Wow. But so this is a major center of town, and it's at the art museum, right? Was that where it was? And
Yep.
It looked like a pretty big statue when I saw it online. I didn't remember it from the trip, but in any case, what my daughter tells me is that this is a big landmark in town.
Yes, yeah. There are plenty of people who have used that statue for different business logos or posters or different things to kind of symbolize the city. So yeah, between that and the fleur-de-lis.
Cara, here's a question for you you're going to hate me for. What does the statue mean to you?
Well, I guess for me, it's mostly a symbol of the city. It was put there after St. Louis hosted the World Fair back, I don't remember what year that was. But yeah, so it's to commemorate bringing that to this city, and was mostly put up because that is his namesake. So the original establishment of that statue is non-religious. So that's kind of how I approach it more so, is as a landmark of the city. However, in light of different actions that have been taken around the country to remove statues that are people that have a Catholic background, that are recognized as Catholic saints, it becomes worrisome to me to see statues like that being targeted. Yes, so that's kind of more so where I stand for how I view the statue itself, and from a non-religious standpoint, why I think it's worth kind of arguing to keep, because that is the context that the statue has been put up in. And honestly, most people that I talk to that come from out of town don't even know who the statue is of. They just know it's a symbol of the city. So.
And they can't figure it out because the city's name is St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know anything about St. Louis? I honestly don't know much.
I don't know all that much. All I know is that he was the King of France. I know that he is recognized as a saint, more so because of how he had welcomed in the poor to the castle. Like, he would often have dinners where he would invite the poor in. He also helped with building hospitals. I want to say that he might have had a hand in the education system. I'm not entirely sure. He also kind of was the founder of the idea that you are guilty until proven, or that you're innocent until proven guilty. Sorry. Yes, innocent until proven guilty was one of his things. So that's kind of what I'm familiar for like his good attributes. I know that, you know, there are many unsavory sides to people as well. So he does have some of that. He was not kind to the Jewish people, so that is a valid reason why the Jewish community is not happy about having a statue commemorating him. I know that Muslims are not very keen on him either, because he was involved in the Seventh Crusade. I don't know how many he was involved in, but I know for a fact that one. I'm also aware that he had brought back the crown of thorns from the Holy Land. So that's kind of what I know of for St. Louis. But yeah.
And his participation in North American slavery was nil. He's not related in any way, shape, or form. He's never stepped foot in this country and committed no personal offenses against anybody now living in this country. I mean, I assume,
yes,
being a French guy from a long time ago. Yeah, whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, okay, controversial for, valid reason though, still.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't want to cheapen that. So what, do you want to just tell the story of what's going on over there?
Yeah, I can take that on a little bit. So what I'm aware of is that there was a movement from the Jewish and Muslim community in St. Louis. I'm not entirely sure if it was started by them, or I know that there's a prominent couple of figures from the Black Lives Matter movement in St. Louis that have also been involved, that called for the removal of the statue on the grounds of how he had treated the Jewish people and his involvement in the Crusades. Because there are people who live in the city who have those two backgrounds, and the thought is that, you are lifting up somebody up high that was not the best towards all groups of people that are present here. So they wanted the statue to be torn down and were willing to do so themselves without going through city authorities. And they're also calling for the renaming of the city. So this all kind of started to develop not long after I remember hearing about the Rosary statue in California that was first taken down. So
Cara,
catching...
interrupting you here. So for me to be minimizing, the feelings of Jewish people and Muslims, I guess I was thinking from what you were saying that it was a more general complaint, as in Muslims in foreign lands in a distant time didn't like him. But this is a current accusation by local people who feel personally hurt by that statue. Okay, so I apologize.
Yes. So a friend of mine and some other friends of his had caught wind of people calling for that statue to be torn down. He'd also heard about the Christopher Columbus statue getting taken down in another park in St. Louis. So he wanted to do something to ensure that the statue doesn't also get taken down, or at least a voice is being heard that is kind of pushing back against the cancel culture per se, of you have somebody that has, I don't know, a slightly controversial past, therefore they should no longer be in the public eye. But he decided to organize a group to pray the rosary outside the statue, or at the base of the statue, to hopefully have the statue stay, and then also in the broader context, praying against the tearing down of statues that in a kind of to stop having history be erased and rewritten according to our current understanding of it, particularly when it comes to various religious figures. So that was kind of the motivation behind that. So that it's been a daily rosary outside of there. More recently, I'd heard that the hill has been blocked off from people to be able to drive up there, and they ended up having to pray slightly away from the statue. There was one time where it became a little bit violent. So that was when some other people outside of the Rosary group came and were trying to provoke aggression from the prayer group, and then when it was not provoked, they moved themselves to try to kind of like rough up some people. So I think that was the only time though that it became violent. There had been other times where it was kind of threatened to become that way, but then nothing came of it. I know that right now the St. Louis mayor is in favor of the statue staying. So as far as the civic leaders go, they're not going to take it down. So it's just more so ensuring that others will not take it down, or that if somebody else ended up becoming the mayor of the city, that they would not tear it down.
Who owns the statue? Is it the city?
Yes. The city owns the statue. It's kind of, in a sense, is a part of the art museum. So I've heard of some people for other statues making the argument that maybe they shouldn't be in a public place. They should be relegated to museums. So in the instance of this statue, it is already part of a museum. Technically, it's right outside of our art museum.
Is that a modern art museum? What kind of museum is that?
It kind of has a mixture of different types of art. I know they have a modern art section, but not everything is. They also have some collections that circulate through, like I think of most recently that Rembrandt's section there, or Rembrandt's art here. But I'm not very familiar with different forms of art. So.
Have you been to the museum?
Oh yeah. I've been there a couple of times.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So there was a Christopher Columbus statue in St. Louis that was already taken down. Mm-hmm. Were any other statues in St. Louis taken down?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. So I wonder, I don't know if you know this, but who owns the Christopher Columbus statue? Is that also the city?
That one I don't remember exactly. I want to say it was the city. I think that the city had the final say in taking it down. So I'd say a tentative yes. It was owned by the city.
So now the people who, so you said that St. Louis has been accused of being unkind to Jews and to Muslims. Do you get a sense from the counter protesters? And correct me if you want me to use a different word for that. But are they actually the Jewish and Muslim people? Do you get that sense?
I honestly haven't really been there when there were people who were in opposition to the statue also there at the same time. I know from the one time when it became more violent, that was not people from the Jewish or the Muslim community that ended up instigating that.
Has there been any statement from the Jewish or Muslim community saying we want that gone?
Yeah, there have been statements released from different Jewish and Muslim groups in the city that have been formal movements for that to be, for the statute to be reconsidered. So there's a little bit of dialogue that is happening there. But as far as people being physically present at the statue, as far as people saying that they will remove it themselves, from what I can recall, it was not people from those groups.
How many times have you gone down there personally?
Personally, I've been there only 2 or 3 times. I'm unfortunately rather busy, so I don't get down there very often.
If I lived in St. Louis and I didn't go, it wouldn't be because I was too busy. So around the whole country, we have this situation of people trying to tear down statues through force or violence, or defacing statues. In Wisconsin, in Madison, they tore down our Forward statue. So sad at the Capitol. Yeah, and but to me, it seems like the people who want to do this, I was of the opinion that they were just basically violent mobs. And so the idea of going there into a place where you might be confronted by an angry mob, that would be why I wouldn't go.
Oh.
So I wonder if you had some sort of feeling about that when you went.
Honestly, like when I was there, I had the thought cross my mind that someone, that there might be people who choose to show up and act in that way. But honestly, the thought of it becoming violent is not necessarily a deterrent for me personally. That might be because I am a young person who does not have a family, so just kind of like the thought of that is not as intimidating to me. But I know for many people that does keep them from going, not everybody.
Okay, so what you just said is very surprising. So I guess I feel obligated to ask you where that comes from in you, where you would say, I'm gonna do this and I don't care if I get hurt.
Yeah, I guess like for me, it's because of the larger picture that is behind everything that's going on is something that I think would be worth suffering for if that ended up happening, in my choosing to peacefully exercise my view of choosing to just go and pray. Because there have been times throughout history where the tearing down of statues preceded like an incoming culture, like flat out culture war that also would seep into the governments and lead to tyranny that way. Or just kind of like for Russia, that was the first thing that happened, was that they tear down all the statues before it became the USSR. And many other countries had similar things where if there was going to be a regime change, the first thing that happened was the tearing down of statues and destruction of art. So just kind of seeing that, knowing that history, I think for me personally, being there and making some sort of stand of saying that I don't agree with having this getting torn down, if you hurt me, you're in the wrong. It just, I don't know, it's not something that I am particularly afraid of experiencing. Like, I know in the moment it would be rather painful.
So,
but it's a cause that I think would be worth suffering for.
I've been interested in this because you had iconoclasm, which was, what's that? I don't know, 800s or back around then. And iconoclasm was an actual heresy, and there are martyrs of iconoclasm. So there are people who died defending statues and paintings and religious things like that from, I think that was mostly from Muslims at that time, who don't think that images are an appropriate thing to have in your art or whatever, or for whatever reason that was really going on. And, you know, I've had to ask myself a question a lot lately of, well, you know, just in general, over the last like 2 years or so, what's the hill that I'm willing to die on? And then I ask myself, well, am I going to die for a statue? And so your answer is really interesting. I liked what you said, and I absolutely understand the business of the frog pot boiling, and the little bitty incremental things that happen. And so it's not like just you wake up one morning and there's something big that you can actually fight, that it was all these little things like this. And you have to decide at which point you're ready to get run over by a tank. I think about the protesters in Hong Kong who are in such grave danger and saying, okay, this is my hill. This is my hill. Any thoughts about any of that? You've already said it well.
I guess that, like, another piece I didn't quite talk on either that kind of hits a little bit more of a, not quite a personal note for me, but is a little bit closer to my heart, because it's that it's a statement that directly impacts how people think, is the whole thing of, if you have any sort of blemish in your past, you should not be able to have a statue, like you should not be highly regarded, which I think is ridiculous, because it's demanding perfection on everybody. And there are only 2 people in the entire history of the world who even would be fit to have a statue at that, and that would be Jesus and Mary. But I don't think that means that we can't admire people for the good that they have done, even if they have some other parts of their past that were unsavory. Like, we should still be careful about who we immortalize. Like, I think that, you know, erecting a statue, or actually, I'll take a different route. There are lots of Robert E. Lee statues down in the South, and I agree that, you know, he shouldn't have statues given what he is commonly known for. And like, he himself even said, "Don't make a statue of me." So there are certain people that I think, they should not be like honored, because that is part of the making a statue, is honoring a person for the good they have done for various communities, or because there is something that is worth considering about yourself for whoever is being placed there to look at. So just kind of like this culture of you make one misstep and you're obliterated. Like, there's nothing that you have done or can have done in the past or can do in the future that can change that, is entirely anti-Christian, for one. And even if you are not of the Christian faith, like, that's a terrible way to look at the individual people around you, and that's an awful way to look at yourself. So I think that needs to be called out. So
I like the idea that a horrible way to think of yourself is that you are unworthy of a statue.
Yeah.
So logistically, so there was a group and it was meeting outside the statue at 6:30 every day, and they were praying the rosary. What was happening at that? Is that still going on?
It's still going on. So it starts with a lot of people choose to kneel, not everybody, some stand. And then there's an icon of Our Lady of Czestochowa, a couple of relics there, crucifix, and various other images are also there. So unfortunately, unless you are kind of on the side of the statue, the people praying, it looks like we are praying to the statue when that is not the case. So I'll admit that looks pretty bad. But anyway, so we have a priest who will lead the rosary for us. And then occasionally there would be some other prayers or blessings at the end. There was one time that I went that we had part of the relic of the crown of thorns there. So there was a blessing associated with that. And there was a relic of St. Louis. I'd imagine that they probably still have that there. And then afterwards, just kind of talking with the people around you. But that's all that it is. It's very simple, peaceful gathering. The organizers make an effort to have it not be overly political or anything. They're very much trying to keep it we're here to talk about this statue. We're not here to make any other statement other than this statue should not get torn down, which I think is a good move on their part, particularly trying to not have it look like this statue is the Catholic statue, which I think is more of an issue that's kind of bubbling up around this too, is like it's meant to be a statue for the city, but because it is a Catholic figure and now we have people praying the rosary outside it looks like it's now a Catholic statue. So that's kind of its own little twist in of itself that can be hard to navigate as far as I don't know, having your cause.
Leave your MAGA hat at home. Huh?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I would think that the best protection you would have as a bunch of pacifists, would be to have people maybe assigned to be videotaping on their cell phones if anything happens. Is there any discussion about that?
They have live stream that happens on their Facebook page. So if you don't feel comfortable going yourself or aren't able to, you're able to still pray along with the rosary. So that's a nice feature that they have going. I think they might actually have a couple of different people that choose to live stream. But yeah.
Interesting. So, train of thought. Okay, so I understand that the feds came in. Okay, I had to move over to get my air quotes onto the screen because I'm like leaning this way. So the feds came in, and how has that changed things?
I honestly haven't been there since that had happened. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that that's probably around having the barricades up so that people can't go and actually approach the statue. So I think that's all that really is. So it's been a change in location for the rosary itself. So it's no longer at the base, but it's further down the hill. So as far as I'm aware, that's the only change that's really occurred.
Now here's an interesting question for you. So I understand this is mostly the Latin Massers who are doing this. And I don't think that you're a Latin Masser, are you?
No, I am not.
So what is your experience of praying with the Latin Massers?
Well, they use Latin sometimes for the prayers, so I don't know it.
You don't know what's going on.
But I don't know, I have a couple of friends that are part of that community, so that's I don't know, it's not something that's like off-putting to me at all. So it's more so interesting in having like, I think it's the Glory Be that they end up singing in Latin, but the rest of it is, I don't know, any Catholic should be familiar with. There's one part where they add in singing a very brief Marian hymn, but I know that actually that's popularized at Medjugorje, so that's you'll see that pop up in various communities throughout the country. But
so I know that you're involved in the young adult, there's like kind of a young adult Catholic culture in St. Louis, that it's somewhat organized and this stuff. So has any of this impacted that young adult group culture?
I mean, like, people from the young adult group, a lot of young adults will show up for praying the rosary. I know that the group that I'm mainly a part of, we walked to the statue one day to go pray it. So I think that many people within the Catholic young adult circles are aware of what's going on, particularly because it was mostly members of the Catholic young adult community that had spearheaded this. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily made big waves, or that's a topic that everybody is buzzing about all the time, but people are generally aware that it's happening. Yeah.
So what do you talk about if you don't talk about this?
I mean, the other events that we're at and just catching up with each other, things with COVID. There's plenty to talk about these days.
I think that would be high up there. So, yeah, well, what you're giving me is great information here. So, in terms of just wrapping up this conversation, so anything you want to close with, any hopes for the future? Do you have hope for the future?
Hopes for the future would be that, statues would stop coming down of people who are truly worth remembering. Because a lot of the talk is that we're not trying to erase history. We're just trying to not regard different figures as highly as they have been. However, I don't think that will be the effect of removing many of the statues that are out there. It will be a forgetting of different figures, or even why those figures are standing there. So I don't see that argument as being very strong, even if the people who are making the argument fully believe that is what is happening. So
I have to believe that St. Louis is more well known now in the city of St. Louis than he was 6 months ago because of this. As you say, there was a statue, nobody even knew who it was of. Nobody really cared. Is he on a horse,
I mean, that could be different for people that actually grew up here too. I'm sure they were aware, but us transplants, not as likely.
I bet the locals didn't know who St. Louis was. I bet they didn't. Maybe they did. All right, fine. All right. Well, I thank you very, very much for your time. And it's been great talking to you. So say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.